For those who experience the negative impact of Ghana's energy crisis, the announcement by the government that it has cleared some $1.4 billion in energy sector legacy debt, as it is called, may bring some joy to their hearts, because then it signals that the country at least is on the right path towards energy sustainability, as it were. But beyond the clearance of the $1.4 billion, questions still remain as regards the fundamental issues that brought the legacy debt in the first place. How do we deal with it, and how do we ensure that the plans the government says it has put in place really would work to ensure the country doesn't return to the bad old days of serious energy crisis? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and tonight we'll go into beyond the clearing of the $1.4 billion, the plans in place to ensure that Ghana really is on the path of energy sustainability. When we come back, we'll bring you, I'll introduce my panel to you. Of course, we'll have a representative from the Energy Ministry, as well as some two other experts joining us to go into this conversation. Do stay with us. And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. Tonight, we're looking at beyond the clearing of the $1.4 billion in energy sector debt. What else is in for the country? How do we ensure that we do not pile up debt again in the coming days? I do have on the panel with me Mr. Richmond Roxon. He speaks for the Energy Ministry. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, and good evening to my co-panelists as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I also do have as well Dr. Eric Boachi-Yadom, financial economist, senior lecturer at the UPSA. Good evening to you as well, Doc. Thank you once again for joining us on Agenda.
Thank you, and good evening to yourself and your viewers.
And of course, you're joined via video call by Dr. Elik Plim Apekogbo. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Independent Power Producers. Good evening to you, sir. It's great to have you as well.
Good evening. Great for the honor. Thank you.
Remember that we're streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Send us your comments and we'll read them back to you. So let me start with you, Doc Apekogbo, because prior to the government clearing the debt owed you, the IPPs had been crying, as it were, asking for your monies for what you had done earlier. This must be relieving to you. But I heard you earlier, you don't seem to be completely okay beyond the 1.4 billion cleared.
Well, I don't think that is true, but the truth of the matter is government has shown a good commitment to what we have agreed. Since the new government took over office, we have been having a series of engagements with regards to how we dealt with the outstanding arrears, and also going forward, how do we ensure sustainability and predictability of the cash flows. So it's an ongoing process. They are doing very well. To me, I'm personally impressed, and I believe strongly that leadership will restore to the sector. So I am happy that they have shown good commitment to what we have agreed.
I'll come back to you. There seems to be some challenge with your line. We'll rectify that and I'll come back to you. But perhaps I should come to you, Mr. Roxon. Let's just get some foundations right. The government talks about, in that statement, clearing $1.4 billion in energy sector debt. If you can tell us, and that was from January to December of 2025, right?
Absolutely.
How much debt was there before you started clearing?
So let me say good evening to your cherished viewers again. When this administration took over, the data we had from Ministry of Finance in January was that we were indebted to the IPPs by the tune of about 1.73 billion United States dollars. And beyond that, the World Bank guarantee for Sankofa, which was $500 million, had also been depleted by the previous administration. And that was a guarantee that was put in place to ensure that gas payments or gas that was consumed from the Sankofa fields are paid. That $500 million was depleted. It accrued interest of about $97 million. And so all in all, on that, we owed about $597 million. Beyond that, the payments, outstanding payments to ENI and VTOL, which was about $480 million. Beyond that, there are a number of payments that are outstanding. We owed NGAS. We owe some service providers when it comes to acquisition of fuel. There are also liabilities to our own state institutions because they don't run free of charge, of course. So there are some liabilities for VRA and BUI as well. And so if you put together the sector liabilities in all, beyond IPPs, you're looking at in excess of about 3 billion.
In about 3 billion. Now, over the course of 2025, how much would you say was added because of shortfalls?
What has happened in 2025 is what I would describe as magical. Because in 2025, the government of the day ensured that most of the debt or the current payment had been settled. So every month you have invoices from the IPPs, for instance, and the IPPs will bring their bills, and because of the prudent management of the cash waterfall mechanism, most of these bills have been settled almost 100%. And so if you look at what was done in 2024, under the cash waterfall mechanism alone, in 2024, the total payment under that fund was a little over 6 billion. In 2025, as at September 2025, the government has spent over 13 billion payment with the cash waterfall mechanism alone, which was double of that. If we look at the payment that would be made for Q4, if you put that together, all in all, we're expecting that through the cash waterfall mechanism, you would have raised about 18 billion. That alone shows a significant improvement, and that will be from revenue from ECG.
So let me get that clearly. Because we have shortfalls because of the losses we make, you're claiming that aside from the monies that you paid, the losses that came, which would have contributed to the shortfalls, you cleared them, and so they didn't come in as debt. That's what you're saying?
I don't know why you're saying I'm claiming, because I'm giving you the data. So it's not a claim. These are factual matters. And like I said, the whole of last year...
No, is that what it is? I just wanted you to say yes or no to that.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Now, you've cleared... I just want to establish something before we go to the rest of our guests. You cleared the 1.4 billion, and that was as at the end of December 2025, right?
Yeah.
After clearing the 1.4, looking at all the amounts you gave us, $1.73 billion, $500 million, 480, and also the other liabilities you talked about. How much was left as at December after clearing the 1.4?
That will be a data that will be provided by Ministry of Finance, because they do the payment. And as a ministry, we also requested payment, those updates from the Ministry of Finance. But as I mentioned, what was paid within the year under review, beyond the 1.47 billion that was paid, we also spent about 400 million United States dollars on liquid fuels within the period under review. There was an arbitral award, a judgment debt of about $60 million that was also paid for the GPGC. There are also other payments, gas payments. You have Tallow, you have WAPCO, you have NGAS as well. So you put that together. Last year, we've spent well in excess of over 2 billion for energy sector shortfalls. What the Finance Ministry put out was just for 3 specific areas, which will be the guarantee for World Bank, for the Sankofa fields, the IPPs, which we paid almost $400 million.
And I'll be coming to you very shortly, Dr. Yadom. But what I thought you could provide was, as long as you knew how much was owed and you know you've cleared 1.5, you should be able to tell us how much is left.
Yes, the difficulty is that there are a number of moving parts. And that is why I mentioned that the Ministry of Finance will provide that data. We don't make the payment. We'll have a fair idea what the outstanding figures will be. For example, out of the money we owe the IPPs, in 2025, the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, Honorable Dr. Jinapo, set up a committee to renegotiate the power purchase agreement. That committee has saved over $252 million out of what we owed. And so we'll have to do the tabulation to be able to arrive at exactly how much we owe. Beyond that, there's also been discount on some of the charges for the tariffs from these IPPs. And I'm sure that Doc can confirm some of the IPPs that were charging 20 cents per kilowatt hour, they're currently doing 6. And so if you look at the quantum difference, if you're spending 20 million now, you're doing about 6 million. And so we'll have to do the reconciliation. I'm sure that will be provided in the coming weeks by Ministry of Finance to give us a clearer picture of what our position is as of now as a government.
Dr. Beatrice Adu, what's your initial reaction to this information being given by the Energy Ministry as regards where we are financially within the energy sector?
Yes, it shows government's commitment to ensuring that we have some stability in our power. But I think you've asked the right questions to my friend, and I just wanted to, the same question you are asking, how much we are left with. I understand that in 2025, we have a total energy sector debt of about 5.6 billion. So I was hoping you would bring that conversation to the table. So if we have paid around 1.47 billion, then simple mathematics will tell us that we are left with about $4.2 billion to go.
So that's still huge.
Yes, that is still huge. But I think there's inconsistencies in the data. You remember the previous government, in his handing over note, he mentioned that he met a debt of about $2.5 billion, and he's leaving it at $2.5 billion, the energy sector debt. So if the debt has gone to $5.6 billion as at the close of 2025, unless we want to say that the figure that the president provided at the time, which was, I think, first week in January 2024, was not correct.
First week in January 2024.
2025 handing over his last State of the Nation address. One of the emphatic statements he made was that he met the energy sector debt at $2.5 billion, and he's happy to leave it at the same $2.5 billion.
So eventually what the government is saying is that irrespective of the kind of debt we met, we are committed to clearing those debts and ensuring that the country is on the right path when it comes to our energy sector.
I'm arriving at the point, because if we don't know the energy sector debt we came to meet, we don't establish that, then the $1.4 billion or $1.47 billion that we have paid is just a running cost.
But he mentioned it.
Yes, it's just a running cost that we pay every year. Adams also just mentioned that last year, 2024, they also paid $1.4 billion. So it is not really anything new, and we are not tackling the problem head on. So we need to be able to establish how much debt we came to meet and how we are clearing that legacy debt. So if we are paying for let's say, energy that have been used in 2025, and we target legacy debt, then in a way there's some.
So let me take you through the breakdown of per the statement issued by the Energy Ministry. You're claiming that you don't think the debt paid.
No, I'm not claiming. I'm saying that per the figures we have, we just need to. I've read the statement. I know the composition of what has been paid. So
just wanted to run it through again, just in case you still need some clarity. It said inherited debt to IPP is about $393 million. You go to the World Bank guarantee money, which was $500 million. And of course, with the interest, it became $597.15 million. The government says that it's cleared that. Also, so in all, it's paid the 1.47. At least there's a breakdown of that.
Yes.
You still do not think that it was...
It's not about what I think. It's about establishing where we were and where we've come to.
This doesn't establish that?
This doesn't establish it entirely, because if we had a debt of about, and even from his opening remarks, he mentioned that we had started around total of about $3 billion, which is not very far from the $2.5 billion that the previous government mentioned that they left the debt there. From my friend here, he said that the debt they started off with will be around the region of about $3 billion. But then there's also another figure telling us that the total debt we have in 2025 is $5.6 billion. So we need to get the figures right so that we can have a conversation to know where we stand. Because if we have come to meet about $3 billion, let's even ignore the $2.5 billion argument from the past president, and let's go with the $3 billion that my colleague had just mentioned. And we inherited a debt of $3 billion, and currently the debt is $5.6 billion. If we pay $1.4 billion, then we'll be left with $4.2 billion, which is so huge. So I just need clarity in the data so we can pick the conversation.
How do you respond to that before I come back to you, Mr. Elikplim? Doc.
I think that Doc is confusing a number of issues. And that is why I took time to give the breakdown of the energy sector debt. When you discuss the entire debt in the sector, together with the shortfalls, you're going to add ECG, you're going to add parastatals, you're going to add fuels. The data I provided earlier was not
exclusive.
So
that point should be clear.
Yes, and because the mechanism for settling ECG's debt is separate from what the shortfalls are. Beatrice's question was specifically on the shortfalls, which is a liability of government. ECG is a limited liability company, and of course, we'll have to take steps too. If you take ECG alone, when we came to government in January 2025, the liabilities for ECG was 80 billion cedis. And so if you're now going to include all that, it changes the dynamics. What you are looking at is the energy sector's shortfalls, which are the direct liabilities of government. And that is what I have run you through. If you compare the figures that were provided by the former finance minister, and that's why I made a statement earlier that he will get it wrong because he focused his statement on the entire shortfalls for 2024, which was settled by government. What this finance ministry statement released for the government says limits it to 3 specific areas, which are legacy debt. Those 3 are completely different from your entire energy shortfall for the year. And that is why I mentioned earlier that the Ministry of Finance will compile the final data for the energy shortfall, the government's expenditure for 2025, not just the expenditure for IPPs and legacy debt, but it will include all other payments that it made. And that is why I mentioned for gas payments, for example, to Talo, to Engas, to WAPCO, to VRA, and all that. If you add that to it and you do the comparative analysis, even on top of that, this administration would have spent far in excess of what the NPP government paid in 2024. And so it is important that you situate the conversations in its proper perspective. For example, if you're going to add the entire debt, you are going to look at cash waterfall mechanism and how much you've spent. So if you have a government that spent 6 billion in 2024, and you have another government that by Q3, it has spent almost 14 billion making payments, you can look at the difference, and obviously you have an impact on the overall sector debt. And so it's important that when you are looking at it, you look at the moving parts, the separate components, that will give you the perspective. But if you want to put all of it together, then of course you're going to add ECG, you're going to add what's on Bui's books, and then what's on some of these power state house to make your argument to determine what the specific energy sector debt as a whole will be.
Dr. Elikplim, I want to come to you because aside from this money that we're talking about, we also do know the projection of the IMF in that report that we should be expecting some shortfall of 1.1 billion US dollars. Already, it's listed in terms of cost, how much is going to cost us, generation costs, liquid fuel payments, and even compared it with how much in terms of revenue the country is projecting at getting, which is 2.6. There's still a lot of challenges, which is why I'm giving you this data. How do you foresee really the government meeting all these demands in this energy sector, having budgeted about 15 billion Ghana cedis just for that sector alone?
Thank you very much. From where I sit, I mentioned earlier that I have certainly developed some level of confidence in where the sector leadership is going through. One, you could see a verifiable drive of efficiency into the power system. This obviously is going to contribute significantly to revenue mobilization. We heard earlier last year our government investment, ECG's investment in some transformers, replacement some of some of the obsolete equipment. These are significant action or steps that are taken, which have a direct impact on the system and, for that matter, the revenue-making ability. And I believe strongly that the progress we are seeing in ECG's revenue collection is as a result of some of this initiative. If this can be intensified, for me, I don't see much of a challenge because I've always held the position that if we can invest in technology or we can invest in the system mechanization to meet the needs of the time as far as technology is concerned, I see most of the losses that we keep incurring, moving out or reducing significantly. So if you ask me, I have so much confidence in the system that if it can continue this way, I don't foresee the challenge that is being predicted.
Dr. Adu, where do you stand on the plans put in place by the government and the projections of the IMF? Because again, the concern is that the country has had issues with revenue collection. So if you don't collect enough, then you're going to go back to that same problem.
Yes, I think that one of the things we have failed to do as a country generally is planning. Not only planning, but also the implementation. You ask yourself, how did we get here? We got here starting from somewhere 2012, when we failed to plan, and the gas supply from Nigeria, there was disruption in it. And you remember the dam water levels has also gone down, and we couldn't generate enough power at the time. A series of issues, but I'm coming to what brought us here. So the government at the day decided to put in measures to address these issues. Then we have to probably move on to the light crude, and we engage this IPP is to come and help, in terms of our power generation. I think that our inability to plan forces us to take decisions that later it come back to have that effect on the economy.
Are you talking about then or now?
I'm talking about then.
Okay.
And I will connect it to what is happening currently. So one of the decisions that was taken at the time was the take or pay. And the take or pay decision made us to pay for excess capacity that we were not even using. And that decision actually built our debt over time. And the government of the day thought it wise to even establish the ESLA and find a way to pay off those energy sector debt. You see, if we studied the cycle, our cycle as a country, we usually have 4 years of good time and 4 years of bad times. So every 4 years of good time should help us prepare for a possible bad times.
So the question I asked you
yes.
was, we've seen the government budget 15 billion Ghana cedis
yes.
towards this. We've seen the projection from the IMF.
Yeah.
Do you see this? Do you foresee this thing working with the current plan in place?
So the history is telling us that if we don't make the plan work, we don't have any option. The history that I'm giving you tells you that if we don't make the plan work and unforeseen occurrences happen, we'll be forced to take a decision that will be detrimental to us.
I don't think you're answering the question.
No, I don't know. I don't think you are. I'm coming from a certain angle.
No, okay.
The angle.
I will let you come in very
Yes, the angle I'm coming from is that we have had opportunities to implement difficult decisions, like what the government is trying to do, the government allocation, what the IMF has asked us to do, or the projection by the IMF. I am just stressing the point that if we don't make it work and unforeseen occurrences happen, we may experience a situation that is worse off.
But if you look at the IMF report, which was in 2025, yes. that I quoted a bit of to you, the IMF seemed to actually be happy with the fact that the government is on course, and even criticizes the former government for failing to go through with the agreements it did with the IPPs and abandoning the whole thing.
So I'm stressing the point that we don't have option than to make sure that the plan works. I don't know whether you get a point. If the plan don't work, if we don't follow the schedule, the IPP that we are paying them, if we don't continue the schedule of paying them, and we default, and we don't put in plans to make sure that, number one, we have an efficient power system, we're able to generate enough revenue to pay them, then our debt may also come back, or our debt will go up again.
Again, you haven't answered the question. I will just ask you one last time before I go to Mr. Roxin. The question I asked you was, you are a financial economist.
Yes.
Looking at the plan that is on the table right now, do you think that this will work?
You are asking about the feasibility of whether the plan will work or not. And I'm saying that where we have gotten to as a country, we need to make it work. And I believe that the government should be committed. Like what we have seen in the first year payment, the government should be committed and ensuring. One of the things that the government mentioned or stated in the press release is ensuring that as and when invoices are submitted, they will ensure that there's enough revenue to pay. if we follow the trend, I'm just raising the point that we must make sure that the plan works.
We must make sure the plan works. Mr.
Yes.
Roxon, you wanted to come in briefly before I come back to you, Doc.
The first difficulty, and that is why Doc is struggling, is that you have to even understand what the plan is. And I'm not sure he understands what the overall, Doc, if I may finish.
Yes.
I'm not sure he understands what the overall work plan of the government is when it comes to the energy sector and the reforms. The administration came from a certain point, and there's a clear direction of where the government is going with the reforms in the sector. And that is why when you listen to somebody, Doc, who leads the IPPs, he will tell you that he has seen efficiency and he's happy with where we are going as a country. And so whether or not the plan will work, the first point is to understand the comprehensive plan that the government has put in place. What is the government doing? The government recognizes all the moving parts in the energy sector. You recognize your challenge in your thermal plants, that once you're doing 70% thermal, obviously it will mean that you have to be procuring fuel.
Yeah.
Either you procure liquid fuel or you procure natural gas. The difference in cost between liquid fuel and natural gas is almost 60%. And so as a government, what do? The first plan is to ensure that you maximize the natural gas that you can get. So number one, you've had the government work together with the E&I partners to increase gas supply from 240 million standard cubic feet to 270 million standard cubic feet. Beyond that, you've had the government work with TALO and its partners, the Jubilee partners, to move gas from 100 to about 130 million standard cubic feet. Beyond that, you've had N-gas, increased gas supply from Nigeria. Once you do this cumulatively, what it means is that you are going to cut down the $1.2 billion cost that you spend on liquid fuel every year, and you'll be looking at around 600, 700 million. That is a significant cost, and that is one of the plans of government. Beyond that, the government is putting together a GPP2 plant, a second gas processing plant. If you put together your gas processing plant, you're going to get more gas, and then you are going to reduce your intake when it comes to liquid fuel. And that you would have dealt with the liquid fuel problems and the gas problems that you have, where you are going to spend 1.2 billion. That is why we said as a government that the introduction of that one city to procure liquid fuel, if the government proceeds with the plan it has, which so far so good, we've added about 70 million standard cubic feet, you will get to a point where you'll be able to take a decision to review. Now you move to your collection. Yeah. You have a challenge with revenue. What do? Cabinet has approved that all institutions, public institutions, should pay for power consumed. And you have 5 institutions that have been exempted. Those 5 institutions will still pay for their power consumed, but they will do that using the allocation of their goods and services in the budget. What it means is that everyone will pay for power consumed. What does it do to your revenue collection? Your revenues will go up. Once your revenue goes up, what it means is that you can pay utilities, you can pay the IPPs, you can pay your suppliers, and then you can manage the financial challenge that you have when it comes to that. You take ECG, which is your biggest hurdle. They've had procurement challenges. In 2022, they spent over 8 billion on procurement when they had a budget of 2. In 2023, they repeated that cycle. 24, they repeated that cycle. And so if you have an institution that has spent close to 30 billion when they have a budget of 6, obviously you have a challenge. The first thing that the minister did was to reform the procurement practice at ECG. Last year, as at November when we checked, ECG had procured material stuff that they needed, transformers, conductors, to be able to do the kind of maintenance work they need, to be able to keep our lights on. What has happened within the period? ECG spent 1.2 billion, when in cumulative years, it has spent over 8 billion. That is the work plan. And so those are the things that you focus on. If you renegotiate with your IPPs and you save 252 million, and you are reducing the cost and you're paying the IPPs, beyond that, you are also renegotiating with them to discount their capacity charges. That fits into how much you spend, and it fits into the bigger part of your work plan. These are structural reforms. These are generational problems that the current administration is dealing with. And so to Beatrice's question, Whether or not it will work or not is to understand what the plan is and to trace and track to see the progress that you've made. And that's why the IPPs are happy. If every government was paying IPPs $400 million each year, do you think we'll be where we are? We will not be. If you're not misapplying the ESLA proceeds, where you had a sunset clause of 5 years, but you had mismanagement of the ESLA proceeds, we will not be where we are. And those are the reforms that you are talking about. On your point about take or pay, I'm not sure if you're an investor, you want to invest your monies and then not want any guarantees. Even the previous administration that criticized their own power purchase agreement they signed, there was some form of take or pay. Because nobody, the investor is not a Father Christmas. When you come in with your money, are you going to are you going to install power plants of 300 million, 400 million, 500 million, and say it's going to be entirely take and pay? What if it's not used? How do you recover your investment? And so, take or pay clauses are normal in this industry, and that those who criticized take or pay years ago, today, their track record is there. And so, for me, that is not the problem. The problem is that what are you doing to be efficient?
But you would admit that it contributed to the country paying for power generated that it didn't need.
There was a plan. The previous administration just didn't follow the plan. That is what happened. Because no, let me finish. Just didn't follow the plan because you had signed on to agreement, and the plan was to industrialize. The plan was to also export. We still export power to neighboring countries. Because they failed to plan. In fact, they came in, hastily decided that they are going to abrogate some of these power purchase agreement that had been signed. And because of political expediency, they kept shouting, excess capacity, excess capacity. Eventually, what happened? By the time the administration left, the whole of 2024, they were shedding load. That is the track record. So it's not just about having...
Poku Prempeh, then energy minister, said it was doomsday.
Exactly, because of... And that's what I'm saying, that it is good that at all times, you have at least 10 to 20% excess capacity at all material times. That is the industry standard. So that today, if you have one of your plants go off, you'll not be plunged into darkness. Today, we are on a very thin line because for 8 solid years, people decided to bastardize what had been started because of political expediency and failed to continue the vision of His Excellency the President at the time. And that is why we are where we are currently.
If you could wrap up for me so I can get his response
currently,
and go to Dr.
The Ministry of Energy and Green Transition has put together a plan 2025 to 2030. Their projection from now to 2030, what our demand will be. And that is why even though now we've hit a new demand, a new peak demand of 4,300, we are not in darkness because we've planned prudently. That's what the minister has done. And that this year, there are major projects that are supposed to come on. You have a 200 megawatt solar project coming on, battery backed. You also have a 1,200 megawatts project that is going to be led by VRE, because the government believes that the state institution should own part of it. The policy is that you shouldn't have majority of your power in the hands of the private sector. You should take steps to win that out. And that's why we're taking steps to do that. And so there's a comprehensive work plan to ensure that the energy sector that we see today, the energy sector that we met, which is today is better than what we met, next year's one will be better than what we are seeing today.
Oh, okay.
And that's why your light is on today.
That's why your light is on today. You say just a brief reaction, and I'll go to Dr. Liklim.
So I didn't know you were when you said whether the plan will work. I didn't know you were expecting me to repeat the plan.
No, not repeat. No, she was expecting to speak to the plan.
I asked you a direct question.
No, can you make me make my point? Please.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just responding to what you said earlier.
So from where I sit, if you ask me, can the plan work? The basic answer, straightforward answer, is that the plan must work. If you want me to repeat the plan, that the government should ensure that there's enough revenue generation, it is just a repetition of what the government has stated that he is going to do to make sure that we don't go back to doom so, as the case is. So I just wanted...
my question was, okay, government has dedicated...
No, you cannot ask a question and have an answer in your mind you're expecting me to answer.
I'm not asking you to... I'm saying that the import of the question was that government has dedicated this.
I understand
this is
clearly.
What is projected. Do you see it working?
Yes, and I'm telling you that 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 is why I had to go back, because we have had some plans that we never, and for what he said, which I don't totally agree with, all the things he has said, we should make sure there's a continuity in plan and implementation. Now, my simple question is, do we create an economy to make an investors rich? My friend mentioned that every investor would ask for take or pay. Is a clause within every...
no, you ask for guarantees.
You ask for guarantees.
Course.
So are we creating the economy to ensure that investors will be rich and the economy in general will suffer eventually? You see, in as much as we took a decision I think at the time that the decision was taken, probably that is the only option on the table. And we had to make a hasty decision to ensure that at least we can restore power for factories to run. Just like we have decision made like the DDEP that is brought a lot of inconveniences to people. My point is that we should ensure that whatever plan that is on paper, we continuously implement it and ensure that it is effective, so that the problems and the challenges that we faced previous years, we will not continue to face them. You see, I understand that we may want to show which political party is doing well or which government is doing well. That is fantastic. But the plan is this. Can we ensure that we don't go back to those challenges?
Oh, let me ask you this brief question before I go to Dr. Likplim. I'm coming to you very shortly. What do you expect the government to do to make it work? Because you keep repeating that the government must ensure this works. What do you expect from an expertise point of view?
Number one, our basic problem is revenue generation and ensuring that everybody pays. So if the government has a plan to ensure that the inefficiencies in ECG and all our power distribution sectors, we seal the inefficiencies, then we will ensure that everybody pays for the power that you are using. A lot of, you go to our neighborhood and a lot of people don't pay electricity bill. There are illegal connections all over the places. So if we can tackle those inefficiencies, there's a clear plan. So if I say that the government should ensure that the plan works, because usually we have fantastic plans on paper, but when it comes to the implementation, you realize that there's a huge disparity or there's a huge deviation. So to answer your question, we should ensure that whatever is put on paper, it doesn't stay on paper, but in actual implementation, we get it on the ground running.
Dr. Likplim, I want to ask you, really moving forward, how you expect the government to, kind of the same question, but really on the issue of revenue collection, because that's an area we've had challenges with. We heard Mr. Roxon say that institutions hitherto that were not paying are now being made to pay, and we already know the projected revenue. How do you expect the government to go about collecting perhaps even more than what is projected, so we always have more than enough to deal with the shortfalls, the recurring shortfalls that we see?
Thank you. I think Roxanne made mention of the significant ones. Dealing with procurement issues internally at the revenue collecting body, that is ECG, is a major concern. During the Public Accounts Committee meeting with the ECG and all that, you saw the figures came out of the procurement breaches. That cannot be allowed to continue. You saw the number of contracts that were cancelled, resulting in about $300 million plus dollars savings for ECG. These are the things that we should pursue and ensure that we drastically decimate the cost of running the distribution value addition services. If this can be done, I'm so sure ECG's revenue making ability will increase. He mentioned also the consideration that the IPPs are giving us in discounts of the outstanding liabilities, discounts on the capacity charges and all that. These are big time savings that will significantly help the sector. So I believe in the short term we'll be seeing the impact. And I don't really, again, foresee any chance going into the future if we are committed to what we have set out to do.
I'm glad you talk about the discount. Okay, Land, please.
Before I put the support and put, I just want to add to what Roxanne said on the issue of the so-called excess capacity. It's unfortunate that the misconception still exists. You know what happened at the time? Roxanne mentioned that the previous administration had a plan of making Ghana an electricity export nation. Well, that means that we must invest heavily in capacity. That is to take advantage of the export market. But unfortunately, a change of government has a different plan that they have to terminate that plan, making the capacity that were procured to remain idle. Assuming a 200 megawatt capacity was secured with the mind of exporting portion of it, but with the termination of that plan, they are actually operating or utilizing only about 60% of that, leaving 40 idle. Definitely it results in a cost because the investor will have to make repayments of investment of loans that were taken. So these are the real causes. It's just misconception, misunderstanding, or misalignment of plans and lack of continuity in the plans that we have. That is where we've gotten to where it's practically avoidable situation.
So
if we are allowed ourselves, we've taken politics out of the sector, we wouldn't get to where we are today.
Yes, you mentioned the fact that you gave the government some discounts, and I know that it was like a haircut between 15 to 30%. How much would you say that cost the IPPs?
Like it was reported in our books, we see we counted about 300 million US dollars, and that is actually not all. Some of the IPPs have accumulated a significant amount of idle capacity, over 300 million, that was not even mentioned. So we could talk about 700 million plus that was given out in this renegotiation.
Did it affect you negatively? That's the import of the question.
No, not at all. We found ourselves in a situation that we must all consider and sacrifice. So it has become necessary. So we need to sacrifice.
And Mr. Roxanne, how much did the government save in that 15 to 30% haircut you gave the IPPs?
Oh, in fiscal payment, about $300 million. And I must commend the IPPs because these are business people. They have investments, they have loans. And so to understand the plight of government, to listen to the Minister for Energy and Green Transition and then his committee, and then to give this significant haircut. Like, it's huge. These are not monies in abstract. These are fiscal monies that we owe them. And so if we are expected to pay, let's say, an IPP 100 million, this IPP will discount and say, okay, I agree that pay me 70 or 60. So these are cash savings. And beyond that, you also had discounts in capacity charges, which is huge. And like I said earlier, we'll commend them for that. For the overall sector, not because I work with the minister, I see the minister every day and I see his work rate. And if you speak to the private sector or even the parastatals, they will tell you that he's a very detailed person, very experienced person. He's been in the sector for years. He's been deputy energy minister, deputy power minister. He's been ranking member. And so we came into office with a clear plan with the support of His Excellency, the President. And so the progress that we've made this year, especially moving from 700 megawatts, a lot of people don't appreciate what 700 megawatts is. That is 3 times the size of America. That is 3 times. In some countries in Africa or in West Africa, the entire country, they rely on just 100 megawatts. And you're looking at 700 megawatts. So if in less than 4 to 5 months, you've turned around the corner and now you're not shedding load. You've not been shedding load from April last year till today. Not a single day have we shedded 1 megawatt of power. That is phenomenal.
I want to come to you, Mr. Yadon, for your final word. There's a message from Ajet Park. He says, we want to see the energy sector grow, and that's a comment on Facebook. There is Nuruddin Abdurrahman, who says the man in black suit obviously disagrees with your points, and I like the lecture given by the government representative. Okay, but let me get your final word.
Yes, I think that stability is what we all hope for, and the continuity of plans is what will bring this stability. We've all had brilliant ideas on paper, but when it comes to the implementation, usually we falter. So we should ensure that what we have agreed, we translate it into practicality. One of the things that I will ask my friend here to look at, I hear the net, is it the net metering has been rolled out. We should encourage people to use more solar, and the government has done well to reduce taxes on the solar, but it's the battery, because people buy for various reasons, probably they've not figured out properly. If we can encourage people to go into renewable energy like the solar and make the battery a little bit more affordable, I think that people will wean themselves off from the main grid. We'll be able to export power as we. So let's explore more options, and let's ensure that the gains that we have had, continue to protect.
But would you say that over the period, this government has shown any commitment at all towards ensuring that there's real stability, dealing with the structural problems as well?
Yes, I generally agree. I agree that the government has done some work there. But my concern is that anytime we have good times, we don't adequately prepare for bad times, which usually comes right after.
After the good time.
After the good time.
Prince Nana Yaoyok says, good evening, Beatrice and your panelists. Great submissions today. And I like the fact that this administration carries along the citizens and takes solutions from the public and experts. Let me get your final word, Dr. Eliquim.
Thank you very much. Dr. What was the name?
Dr. Beatrice Adu.
Yes, mention consumers or going off the national grid or relying on self-generation or the net metering. Let me say there is a foreseen danger with this. What it means is that people going off the grid, relying on their own generation, is going to create problem for the distributor that has contracted some power plants. What it means is that there are a lot more capacity will be lying idle for which they have to pay. So this is not something I would say technically should be promoted. We should rather support utility scale generation that will be factored into tariff mechanism, thereby decimating the end user tariff for the benefit of all. But if we keep promoting that, making people go into solar private generation, I'm afraid it will create more harm than good.
Let me get your final thoughts.
So let me just start from where Dr. Yadom ended. The government has a policy under the Mission 300 to increase our renewable energy by 10%. So far, there's been a massive drive. Earlier this morning, I stated that last year, we installed about 23,000 solar street lights in Ghana. This year, we intend to do more.
If you could be wrapping up for me,
yeah, we intend to do more. Beyond that, we've also we are looking at we are looking at nuclear power as well. We're also looking at a lot more renewable wind, solar itself. And so we rest assured that it's a very important area. It's aligned with His Excellency the President's vision and his goal. That's why he added green transition to the ministry. But just to end, in conclusion, the government of Ghana, led by His Excellency the President, and my minister, Honorable Dr. John Jinapor, will assure the people of Ghana that we will have a better energy sector than what we met. The power sector, we will continue to see your lights on. We still continue to have stable electricity. The goal is to have cheaper tariffs as we move on. And that is why all these reforms are happening. And I'm sure that in the next couple of months, all the work plan, everything that has been put in place as we implement it, will begin to be crystal clear. In the last 12 months...
Okay, I'm sorry, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Mr. Richmond Roxon. He speaks for the Energy Ministry, also to you as well, Dr. Eric Adu, financial economist, senior lecturer at the UPSA, and to you as well, Dr. Elikplim Akpetogbo, the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Independent Power Producers. Thank you as well for joining us via video call. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Join us again next week.